As long as you keep disciplined, it is all right.
Then there's the Fourth Avenue music
The rock
scene.
and roll situation in this town is sickening. It's very poor, and there's good bands who just can't find work. Well, we're at least able to throw a few dollars their way on the weekend. And there's 3 people here who are permanent staff thing. We're all taking a meager wage, but we're all living. And there are other people come in and they do extra work on the weekends. And there are 2 or 3 people who come in and they work on the light show. Now these people are all doing an honest living, and this coffee house is supporting them all. So if anybody can call that down, right, I can't see their reasoning.
Probably the first psychedelic song was Puff the Magic Dragon, which we heard was an allegory for smoking marijuana. Lately, the charts have been dominated by psychedelic songs, and we've asked many of the stars what they thought of it.
The only form of art I can see that it could be called is distortion, because jazz is abstract and pop is more or less realistic.
When we spoke to the Everly Brothers, we asked them if they thought drug or acid themes should really enter into the lyrics of songs, and if they owed the public any responsibility in this regard.
Being honest with myself, first of all, you know, I'm not trying to preach or be, change the world, really. I am not that strong in my complete beliefs, but I don't believe in drugs.
Well, let me put an example to you then. An entertainer who maybe does use drugs or take something that has this effect, do you think he has a responsibility not to say things about it or not to try and create the impression that it's
it'll wind up, he'll wind up going to jail. They'll hear about it. If they want to, that's the example.
I think you have a responsibility, though. You have a personal responsibility to do what you think. But as it's gone now, you can sing something today, and it'll be misconstrued anyhow. And I think that's what one of the main reasons for that is the publicity that Psychedelic has gotten from magazines and books and things that people are reading, articles. That I think this is that people look for it very quickly in the lyric of a song. They look for something that they can say, yeah, this is something weird, when lots of times it's not.
Gentlemen, very interesting comments indeed, and thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
I think that it's wrong that you should advocate drugs, because I think you do owe a certain amount of responsibility to the audience, since you do have some influence over a certain age group.
I think if you know you have an influence over a certain age group, I think you'd be a hypocrite not to tell them what you felt honestly, I think.
I agree with that. But the only thing is, it depends on how much influence you have with the young people, because I think the leaders of today's young people, of course, are basically the musicians and the entertainers. Especially if you look at the Beatles, almost everything the Beatles do is picked up by the young people. And they have such a terrific responsibility to really lead the young people of today. And I think the Beatles, of course, think about that a lot in all the moves that they make. The drug scene is a very touchy scene, and it can't be taken with an off-the-cuff approach because there's so much involved in it. And I think when the Beatles or Donovan or Eric Burden or whoever it may be advocates or doesn't advocate the use of drugs, I think they think about it a lot before they even make a move.
Well, possible, but because I like a lot of the psychedelic music. I like all kinds of pop music, and for that matter, just about all kinds of music, but the psychedelic stuff, which is so creative and inventive and using different sounds and different techniques, sometimes different rhythm and melody patterns, is great. It's inventive and it's fresh. I like it. The only thing I don't like are a lot of the lyrics, because I think it is definitely wrong and really deplorable for our young people to hear glorified on the air things like LSD and marijuana, taking trips, love-ins. One of the Rolling Stones records said something about let's spend the night together and that kind of stuff. I mean, to allow that on the radio and on television and for our young people to hear them. Of course, a lot of times they don't care about the words so much. They like the melody, the beat, the sound of it, but the lyrics get through eventually. And more you hear songs about getting high, taking trips, and little white rabbits and little white pills. And one of the Beatles records is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is LSD. And even though it's a fad, and even though a lot of young people will just shrug it off, It's just a moral influence. It does have an influence to some degree, and it's bad. So if I do any psychedelic music, it'll be sound-wise, but not lyrically.
Oh, I think it's great.
The music.
I love it. I'm talking about the music.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic because I think a person is expressing what he feels. He's not going by anything that is written on paper. This man is playing. He's not playing just for money. He's playing because his soul within is driving him to push, to let his feelings go out in music. And I believe that it's one of the greatest things that ever happened to the field of entertainment, which psychedelic music is rhythm and blues, of course.
Is this new psychedelic type of thing, is that an art form or is that a gimmick?
I think it's a novelty. I think it's a gimmick. I think it's manufactured music that is made with very little feeling, with very, very little preparation, in fact. Last night in my hotel room, I was listening on my tape recorder to an album made by a now defunct group called the Kingston Trio. Do you remember the Kingston Trio?
Yeah.
Kingston Trio have now broken up. Their novelty days have passed. And 10 years ago in 1958, they were on top with no place to go but down. And I listened to them and the Kingston Trio, who were folk singers, perhaps in a more commercial sense, naturally, than Joan Baez or Peter, Paul, and Mary, or the Pete Seegers and the real folk singers. But they were folk singers, and they got out and sang for several hours in a concert performance and for an hour in a recording with nothing. They sang naked. They had 2 guitars and a banjo and their voices. Their voices were exposed, completely unaided, you know. And I challenge any of the rock and roll groups today, any of these psychedelic idiots who are taking all the credit for being the innovators and the shaping, you know, I think it's because of their appearance more of their fame. Then, you know, I never felt myself as a singer that I was that insecure that I had to look like that to get attention. I was hoping maybe my voice would be strong enough to get me my attention, you know.
With most hipsters, I find that the only subject of conversation is drugs, and that gets to be a bore after a while. Another thing that gets to be a bore after a while is their holier-than-thou attitude. There is a kind of game that some hipsters play, and that is higher than thou, or more high, or high more often, or groovy, or you know, a number of things like that. Now, most of them try to resist it, that's true, and all of them are aware of that game. But no, what I really object to is that constant conversation about drugs. Else.
Do you agree with
More people smoke pot than eat peanut butter sandwiches, I would say.
Seriously, just how big a part do drugs play in the hip scene? Let's ask the guru of the psychedelic set, Timothy Leary.
Our government officials tell us that between 15 and 20% of our college students are regularly using mind-opening chemicals such as marijuana and LSD as part of their education and their growth. Now, you must be clear that the young people who are using LSD are not the dull students or the rebellious students. This is not a criminal class. Indeed, it's the smartest, the most creative, the brightest students in our best colleges and universities who are using this new form of growth and education.
I don't believe that any stimulant makes you the better. In other words, I think if you're good, you'll be good without anything, or you should be. Because now I think what a stimulant may do for some people, it may make them think they're better in their minds, and of course your mind is a great help to you, you know, and making you believe in oneself. But in reality, I don't think that any stimulant does anything to actually make your talent better. I think you either have it or you don't have it. Now,
I don't know that much about LSD. I've met some people in Hollywood that say that it makes you feel that you're in another world, but I like this world.
Well, we're more inclined to agree, I think, with Little Richard. Some of the music has been extremely good. The art, the dress, interesting, but drugs are the real hang-up. The trend now, though, is to turn on to Transcendental Meditation with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Exactly do you mean the source of thought?
See, the thought rises as an air bubble rises from the bottom of the sea, and as it comes up, it becomes bigger and is appreciated on the surface as a bubble. Thought rises from the deepest level of the mind, And as the bubble of thought rises up, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then coming up on the conscious thinking level, it is appreciated as a thought. In this practice of transcendental meditation, the mind experiences the subtler states of the thought and arrives at the source of thought. And as the surface activity of the conscious mind contacts the deeper levels of the mind, then the thought waves become much more powerful.
I have a mantra that is given to me that I use when I meditate. I might sit in a chair like this and close my eyes and try to eliminate the distractions that might be prevalent. And I'd pick a quiet room, quiet area, and I'd still my mind and use my mantra to project my conscious thinking into a subtler state, which is what, as I said before, it's all about.
We're going on tour with Maharishi of the major college campuses in the United States in May for around 2 weeks. And I feel we have a tremendous responsibility to present the shows properly in the right context. So I think this going over to India will be very valuable Maharishi will personally instruct us and accelerate us in this thing, and we'll know what we're talking about. We'll know what to say and how to answer questions such as how do you meditate, and
That's Vancouver's Psychedelic Scene. Next week, back to music with the Northwest Company. Monday, watch Let's Go from Halifax.